Celeste, for your love and support of Unity in Chicago. Thank you.
Good morning, Unity in Chicago. How about the passion that what Gretchen was singing with? Was that just fabulous? Well, here's the deal. Imagine that that's the voice of God, and that was a lullaby to you, and that God is this blanket that is enveloping you, and you are this baby that is being born. And that is what's happened each time one of you came through that portal, when you crossed the veil and you came into this human experience. There was this wonderful love song that God was singing to you and saying, this child is born. That heart, physical heart might be small, but the love that is filling this being is just humongous. The wonderful love that God has for each one of us is carrying us and lifting us through each day. And so remember that each time you wake up in the morning, it's like you get to give a new birth again, a rebirth to the child of God that you are. You know, some people say, good morning, Lord. And some people say, good Lord, it's morning. So the invitation is for you to absolutely embrace each new day as an opportunity to express as that beloved child of God that you are, and to celebrate your fabulousness in each breath that you breathe. This is how good God is. It has gifted us with this thing called breath. And this breath is massaging every organ of your body as you breathe. My friend out there, the yoga teacher, she knows that. And so every time you are breathing, that wonderful love energy is massaging you. It's like there is inside of every cell, there's like this nucleus, and there's this atom, and inside of this atom is this subatomic substance that scientists don't see anything there, but that is the energy of God in the midst of it all, and it's in the trillions of cells that are within you. So you're automatically fabulous, and don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. I thought, as Reverend Heidi said, this was the wrap-up for the year, the spiritual wrap-up for the year. So I know a little bit about some of the things that she talked about, and I know a lot about some of the things I've talked about throughout the year. And so when we started in the first Sunday of 2014, my invitation was awakening possibilities. And so this is the intention that we set forth when we did the white stone ceremony. And each of you wrote a new name on that stone, which represented something about your nature that you were discovering anew or committing to anew. And in that has been following you that particular impetus. The universe has been supporting you through becoming more of that divine purpose. And so however it may have looked, even in those moments when it didn't look the way you thought it should look, it was still supporting you in your soul's unfoldment. And so as this slide says, the truth is that you are God's own beloved child, and that God is ever giving you his own wisdom, love, power, life, and substance. And this is your truth. Now the thing about the possibilities. You know how it is when you have someone in your corner cheering you on? It could be a parent, it could be a friend, it could be, somebody to just saying, I know you can do it, I believe in you. Well, that's what's happening with you and the presence of God each and every moment. Because God is just like completely fascinated with you. From the moment you came into creation, it was fascinated at its own brilliance, its own genius in creating such a magnificent piece of art as you. And so just to know before you even came into form that God so loved itself that it was creative and its creativity produced you. So you are the result of God's self-loving. Think about that the next time you look in the mirror, okay? So to know that you are loved is very important because, we have a lot of challenges in our lives. And, what happens when you kind of leave that portal of the spirit realm and come into this human realm, kind of get a little gripped by fear sometimes. When stuff happens and you're saying, oh, this isn't good. Oh, I don't know about this. It could be fear of the unknown. It could be fear of, am I enough? It could be fear of, is there danger ahead for me? Or will I be able to live up to the expectations that are there for me? So all of these crazy thoughts, Satan means crazy thinking. All of these crazy thoughts start to occupy our minds because we've gone from an expansive beingness into a limited realm here on the earth plane. And so it feels like there's something missing because it doesn't feel naturally as expansive on the external as it is internally. And so we have this strange conflict going on. And so what happens is, you can either forget everything and run, which is, one of the acronyms for fear, or you can face everything and rise. And so earlier this year, back in the first part of March, I was inviting you to remember a Myrtle Fillmore quote. This is, this mystical loving light that we call unity is universal. It is that in us that sees beyond what seems to be into what is real and true. And oftentimes we get stuck in things that seem to be real and we think that they are the truth when in fact the whole inversion of reality has been turned upside down. And so if we can just be with those particular fears that we're having, and fear expresses in a number of different ways. It can show up as insecurity, it can show up as jealousy, it can show up as anger, it can show up as all of these things that shrink us, that when you're not feeling in your wholeness, then you're feeling small and everything about your beingness contracts because your nature is expansive. And so when you're not being present with your nature, it feels as though you are contracted and everything tightens up and, you either got to get some people want to get a drink, other people want to get other stuff, you might want to get a massage, but what you want to do is to release that toxic energy from your beingness so that you can be restored to your homeostasis, the natural aspect of the body when it's performing at its most optimum level. And so that happens in this mind-body-spirit connection when we're willing to face everything and rise. In the Course in Miracles, it tells us this is like we're speaking to God. And it says, what you created sinless so abides forever and forever. Such are we. And we rejoice to learn that we have made mistakes which have no real effects on us. Sin is impossible. And on this fact, forgiveness rests upon a certain base more solid than the shadow world we see. I want you to get that. I mean, when I was driving over here this morning, there are people that believe, that part of your religion has to be that you're a sinner. And, I know enough to know that sin is an archery term that means missing the mark. So I'm not trying to be attached to missing the mark and someone who misses the mark. I'm more in tune with knowing that I'm created out of wholeness and that the perfection of God called me into being to reveal it. And so that's kind of the track that I'm inviting you to go on, because when the Course says what God created sinless is forever sinless. And so, even to have to use the word less behind something kind of makes the word, unnecessary. So I'm just going to call it wholeness. And so what God created holy, as in the first song we were singing, meaning the wholeness, nothing's missing, complete. it stays that way forever and ever. There's nothing that can get in the way of you being whole. And so what I want you to know is that any mistake, anytime you might have missed the mark, anytime you might have been off course and had to do a course correction, like pilots have to do when weather comes along and it kind of gets you off the track where you were headed in the first place, whatever happens, if it's a toxic thought, if it's a false belief, they don't really like me, and it has to be a false belief because everybody is loved, so everybody loves you. It takes people kind of a moment to kind of get that, just kind of be with that a moment. And so when you're knowing that there's no real effect to the mistakes that you make, you don't have to beat up on yourself. You don't have to say, oh, that was stupid. Oh, I wish I'd done better. Oh, I should have been kinder. Oh, I should have said something nicer. Oh, I could have done better on that test. I could have done a better job on that project. All of that stuff has no real effect on your beingness. You are still whole. You are created fabulous. You will always be fabulous. Nothing can change that forever and ever. Amen. So this is the basis upon which forgiveness rests, okay? Because knowing that, for God there's really nothing to forgive because it's seeing you as perfect. So seeing that our capacity to forgive in this human realm, in this earth school, is really our capacity to be able to give beyond our fears, to be able to give not to the person that we're presuming to forgive, but to give to ourselves that feeling of wholeness. Face it. Think about somebody who wears your last nerves. Bring them into the room right now. Bring them into your consciousness. Now, in order for you to think something ill of them, in order for you to think something incomplete about them, I don't care how horrific their crime might be, I don't care how horribly they may have been abusive, there has to be something about them that is common with you because you came in the same kind of package. It might have a different shape. It might have a different color. There might be a couple of different body parts that are different from yours, but essentially, you're the same stuff. And so you came from the same stuff. You came from perfection. You came from completeness. You came from wholeness. And basically, they did too. In order for you to be able to connect to your own completeness, your own perfection, you have to do that first before you can see anyone else as perfect. If you're not seeing somebody else as perfect, that might be a clue to you that you're seeing something wrong with yourself. I'm just saying. You might have been in a relationship. You might have been in that bliss. You got married and you were feeling good. And oh, my God, we're going to be happily forever after. They live forever, happily ever after in the fairy tales. And then, there may be some years down the line, and I'm not saying that for any of you newlyweds that might have got married in June. This is never going to happen to you. But if you find yourself some years down the line not as joyful as you were on that particular wedding day, and you say, I can't believe I married that person. What was I thinking? You have to know that even that was an invitation for you to know your perfection. And even any of the missing of the marks that occurred in those particular relationships still did not minimize you, did not diminish you in any way. If they somehow were caught up in their own fear, or you somehow were caught up in your own fear, you are still fabulous, you are still perfect, you are still complete. And so what I want you to know is, like we visited back in the earlier part of March, when we were in that mode where it just seemed like there was going to be no end to winter. You remember that, right? And I came up with this topic, spring forward, like, let's get there, And so what was happening was it's really an invitation to really appreciate where we are. Because I shared with you the story of this woman who was pretty miserable about the whole winter thing. And her daughter was like, oh, Mommy, come look outside the window. Look in the yard. And she was like, whatever. And she looked out there, and there was this little tiny tree that was like frozen solid, but it was standing tall. And so what it was really saying is that in the midst of all of the cold atmosphere, in the midst of all of the chilliness, in the midst of the most harshest conditions, there is you, that strong, sturdy substance that is standing tall in the midst of any seeming adversity. And so now we are prepared to spring forward because we have such a sturdy foundation, because we have such an anchoring in the truth of our being. And the reason that we have such an anchoring is still because Spirit is so totally fascinated by you. It is still so enthralled. It is still spellbound by you. You know, if you're having those thoughts, oh, God must be mad at me. I can't believe God would. I hope God didn't see me. Like, right, how did that work out for the people in the Garden of Eden, right? So God sees you perfect still. And it doesn't require that you do anything in particular in order for you to be perfect. You just are. When I went into and I'll kind of be bouncing around a little bit. But, you know, around Labor Day, we talked about going back to school. And this quote by Ernest Holmes was saying, you know, our time should be devoted to knowing the truth that sets humanity free from the problem of ignorance. That truth which alone can bring enlightenment to the world. That war should cease, that people should live together in harmony because they have recognized the divinity within each other. And so not to be shooting on yourselves, but what Ernest Holmes is saying is it's time for us to be free. It's time for us to not be thinking about, oh, how ignorant we are. It's not about thinking about, I should have known better. It's not about that. But the truth that brings us enlightenment is that we are each divine beings. And because we are each divine beings, we need to be acting like we're divine beings. And so being in harmony and, you know, releasing that conflict, releasing the need to go to war, releasing the need to be at odds. And so these are the kind of things that probably don't fall into the category of those three things that Reverend Heidi was talking about. Nobody is inspired by war. Nobody is feeling moved by war. Nobody is feeling moved by conflict. Nobody is feeling particularly surprised because some of us have become so anesthetized to war and violence that we think that it's something that's normal. It's not. But still, the invitation is to remember that because we are divine beings, we are creative beings. See, God couldn't be about destruction because God is ever creating. If God were about destruction, it would have destroyed itself and there would be no life, period, end of story. But the deal is, we are made from a creative source that is ever creating life, affirming life, expanding life. And so we can recall, you know, when we go home, when we go back to school, when we go within, when we go back to remembering what we know at the essence of our being, at the very core of our substance. And that is that we are love and that we are divine beings. And so we can move beyond any kind of perception that we're separate. We can move beyond any kind of need to be at odds with one another. Back in late March, the topic was living in a holy, holy way, just like the song that we sung earlier this morning. And the invitation was for you to not think about holiness as being something proving how spiritual you are to someone else. That's not what this is about. But the holiness that we're talking about is embracing our wholeness and absolutely using the divine downloads that's ever happening. You know, this love is always happening. If you can, again, picture, you know, that you are this beautiful babe who is surrounded by love. You are this beautiful babe that is surrounded by love, and these divine downloads are coming not just from above, they're coming from the side, they're coming from beneath you. Love is all around you. I think that's even in the lyrics of the song, right? You know, it's important for us to remember that we have an abundant life and that there is nothing missing, there's nothing lacking, there are no limitations to this love. And so here we move into Kwanzaa, and this is day 3 of Kwanzaa, and the principle is Ujima. And so this is, I've been getting a lot of compliments on this. Was actually custom made for me by a friend in Los Angeles. But this is, you know, in sync with Kwanzaa. And so the principle of Ujima is collective work and responsibility. Now, you definitely have got it here at Unity. You know how to do volunteer work. You know how to serve. Y'all do it well. I'm just saying, give yourselves a hand. But it's about building and maintaining our communities. It's not simply just building and say, okay, we did it. But it's about maintaining the community. It's about making sure that what has been established can continue to be maintained. It can continue to grow and can continue to become even more than it ever was. And we're not talking about edifices. We're talking about relationships. We're talking about building relationships. We're talking about being there for one another. You do such wonderful jobs. There's so many things that you've been tithing to, the night ministry and all of the hunger programs and all of the things that you're doing. This is what we call collective work and responsibility. This is what a divine spark does. It absolutely is that light for another spark. It shines and reminds that other light that it is a light and that it can shine. And so this is what we do when we take care of each other. We have to take better care of each other. I don't know if I told you this story. Hopefully I'm not repeating myself, but I might be. Oh, well. So I went into this restaurant, and there was a homeless lady who was standing out there, and she said, would you mind getting me something to eat? And I said, of course. And she said, would you mind if I came with you? And I said, of course. And so we came in, and I got her some food, and she was saying that, you know, I asked her, did she have somewhere to stay? And she said, yeah, she usually stays in the Mission, but it was so cold that there was no room. And so I'm saying, in a city that is known to be cold, we need to create more ways for us to take care of each other. We need to take care of each other better than we do, because we know that each of us are absolutely protected, absolutely provided for, absolutely supplied, but we are the means by which God gets around. And so it's important that we take care of each other. When we were studying the 4 agreements, my part was give your best to the world, and that was around Memorial Day, I believe. And so the invitation there was that action is about living fully, and that inaction is the way that we deny life. So if we see a condition, it's up to us to do something. It's not simply saying, well, somebody else will take care of that. I mean, you know the story of the Good Samaritan. You know, all the holy people passed by the man who was on the road. It was supposed to be the man that was supposed to be without virtue that was the man that helped. And so the invitation is that we are absolutely giving our best to the world, and that is by absolutely remembering our divine purpose, that which we set on the stone in January, what we are here to be, what we are here to do, what we are here to have. And trust me, the light of your being will continue to expand each time you are living on purpose. This is a quote by a young lady. I understand she's pretty smart and beautiful and all of that. Yeah, I'm trying to practice this new thing about you can call it ego if you want to, but I need to work on, you know, promoting myself in more positive ways. So you have to get over whatever those thoughts might be. So I wrote this in Science and Mind magazine a few years ago. Just saying. Embrace your fabulousness. What they say in church today? Embrace your fabulousness. I know that's right, girl. Anyway. So I wrote this in this particular article that I've written having to do with life's longing for itself and us being the light of our being, and how all of these celebrations are happening around the time of the solstice when the darkness is really prominent this time of year, and all these celebrations are coming, whether or not Jesus was born this time of year, and then, Hanukkah comes and all of these different particular celebrations. All of them have one common theme, and that is the celebration of light. And so when we light a candle, when we say a prayer and light a candle, when we put lights on our Christmas tree, when we put lights on our shrubberies, when we put lights on our office buildings or down the street, we are absolutely celebrating the light that is within us. And we want to affirm us as the lights of the world. You are the light of the world. And so here's what Celeste Frazier says. The miracle of the light is the miracle of our own self-knowing. We are individualized units of God-conscious modes. So modes is an acronym for methods of directing energy. So you are a God-conscious method of directing energy. If you are a fear-conscious method of delivering energy, then you are not doing anything to uplift the world. But I know the truth of who you are. You are God-conscious modes. You are God-conscious methods of delivering energy. You're directing your energy because of your God consciousness. And because I know your Christ consciousness is that you are one with God, I am knowing that you are a revolutionary being on this planet. And it is your fabulousness that is contributing to the good of all. And so as I brought you the last time I was here, peace on earth, goodwill toward all. The invitation was to do what Ernest Holmes says and to really come from a consciousness of trust. Come from a consciousness of being surrounded by this love, this blanket of love that is seeing you as fresh and new and is absolutely mesmerized and enthralled, absolutely moonstruck by who you are and what you are revealing about it. And so I invite you to know that love moves forward responsibly, that your evolution includes releasing that forget everything and run, those false beliefs, those toxic ideas, and I know that you'll do that on Wednesday night because you want to unload anything that gets in the way of your delivering energy in the way that you can, because you are love incarnate. And in all of your fabulousness, you are here to deliver God's good. And so let's honor what is to come through us. Let's celebrate our awesomeness, and let's know that each of us, no one is excluded from this. Each of us is a light of God. We are a divine spark living on purpose, and let them see our light so that they have permission to shine. Let ourselves see our light when we look in the mirror and know that we were created out of love. Let ourselves be the method of God getting around in a conscious way. Let's celebrate the light of our beings and allow ourselves to soar into our greatest yet to be. Namaste. So to do that, let's get anchored in who we are. Surrounding me is a blanket of love. Filling me are trillions of cells of pure love. Warming me is the light of this love. I am that I am. I am facing everything and rising. There is something within me that is like a leaven. It is expanding because my nature is expansive. And so I know nothing about anything missing. Everything is here. I allow the breath to massage me. I let God be God as my life. I move forward with the knowingness that I have the power and the courage to stand still in the face of all adversity. And I am knowing that any seeming shadow of my being is simply reflecting back to me those false beliefs, those toxic ideas, which I am free to release now so that I can live this abundant life, be this on-purpose, God-conscious method of directing energy, the energy of love and light. I celebrate the joyfulness that brings as I remember my essence. I remember me, my essence. I know the truth of who I am. I know that I am loved, supported, supplied, and I am complete. I'm whole, and I live in a holy, holy way. I receive the divine downloads. I upload more of the divine. I receive it from every angle of my being. I am at peace. I project this peace, the light of my being, and the entire universe is lit by my presence. I celebrate my awesome fabulousness. And so it is. Ashe. Hallelujah.